Come on, bitch, let's go. Come on, get ready, bitches. You haven't seen nothing yet. Come on.
Valentino, Versace, Lamborghini, Bugatti. I got money to burn. I'm single and I'm naughty.
Come on.
Tiffany's, Cartier, Gucci, Armani.
Come on.
Break out your black card, boys. It's time to party.
Hi, you guys. How are you doing? Goodness gracious. I have had such a crazy week. I'll have to tell you guys about it some other time, though, because we have so much to cover in today's gossip that I was like, oh no, this could be a very long show. So there probably will be time codes in this one this week again, because there's just so much happening everywhere. I can't get over it. So first and foremost, I was sent some gossip that I had forgotten about by a Patreon, and I did want to talk about it today. And it was some old tea back from the old seasons of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills to do with Taylor Armstrong and Russell Armstrong, who obviously you guys know I was on the show as Taylor Armstrong's, quote, friend of. And the original idea was that I was going to come on as a housewife, but they were going to cast me and Brandi Glanville against each other, her as a friend of, me as a friend of, and then, make one of us a housewife, I guess, at the end or something, similar to what they did with Sutton, based on, I guess, the drama we brought over this season and whether or not we were willing to do what, the producers were nudging us in a direction to do. And I, of course, didn't, because I didn't want to out Taylor's abuse on the show, because she said that Russell would kill her and her kid. And obviously, Brandy's willing to out anyone over anything. You guys know that now. So there it is. Okay. But here's the thing. There was some long lost tea in all this, which was that Mohamed Hadid, who was married to Yolanda Hadid, who later goes on the show, right, as a later cast member, he was friends with Lisa Vanderpump, and often Lisa Vanderpump would show his events or parties on early seasons of Housewives. Now, Mohamed was famous for having these kind of elaborate, crazy parties, and he was very interesting in his reputation, we'll just say, for trying to get with young girls, right? And that reputation followed him into his later years. And there's been tons of rumors in the Patreon regarding Mohamed, slipping into girls' DMs that are much younger than him and using the fact that his daughters are supermodels to kind of get in and make these women feel safe. But he's not that safe, really, in the sense that he will date young girls and, I guess try to get his way with them, which in some cases are really inappropriate. Also, of course, he's tied to the Guest family, Marciano brothers, who don't have the best reputation in Beverly Hills. Ask Jennifer Saginaw regarding the shadow mansions, which we did a show about. You can go listen to that show if you'd like. Jennifer Saginaw famously lived at the Playboy Mansion. So we did a whole show about two-parter about Playboy, etc., because I used to go to the parties. All right. So that aside. So I got sent this old tea that Mohamed and Russell were estranged, and people thought it was crazy that Taylor Armstrong and Russell were almost not able to film on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in some of the scenes that Lisa Vanderpump was doing with Mohamed Hadid, because she was banned from being around Mohamed, Taylor was, because of her husband, Russell Armstrong. Because something you may not be aware of is Mohamed Hadid was actually a quote-unquote associate who managed one of Russell Armstrong's trusts that were implicated in civil litigations back in the early 2000s to do with racketeering, which we're all getting familiar with that concept, and getting money in from fake investments and then using it for lavish lifestyle purposes. And Mohamed Hadid was allegedly the head of one of these trusts for Russell and was implicated in some of these really serious allegations being made at the time. So obviously, before Russell Armstrong committed suicide, he wanted to make sure that he wasn't interacting with Russell very much anymore, either because he was pissed that Russell wasn't smart enough to keep them from getting caught, or he didn't know that Russell was doing all these bad things, and so he got angry later after he was getting in trouble for it. Although I will say this, from the allegations made in the civil lawsuits, it does appear that Mohamed Hadid knew what Russell was doing and was benefiting from what Russell was doing. But anyway, this causes we need to not be around each other energy. So getting Taylor Armstrong to be able to go over to Mohamed's house to film was no small feat, given the circumstances. But Lisa Vanderpump and the producers were able to overcome it, probably because Mohamed Hadid secretly loves to be famous. Maybe Mohamed wanted to negotiate Yolanda Hadid a spot on a future Real Housewives of Beverly Hills after she was remarried to David Foster. Who knows? We have heard similar rumors about Tom Girardi and Erica Jane Girardi and how she got casted with money that was due from NBC to Tom Girardi in legal cases. So you never know. By the way, Tom Girardi got 7 years in his criminal trial, which he is going to be serving from jail and not in an Alzheimer's unit because the judge didn't believe his Alzheimer's diagnosis. It seemed to be very convenient with what happened in his case. And simultaneously, Erica Jane Girardi was lip syncing her songs, including It's Expensive to Be Me, in England, for some performance fee. Right. Okay, so she cared a lot about her man. So Mohamed Hadid is about to become important in another franchise of Real Housewives. I'm not ready to talk about that yet, but I will be soon. And, there's some current day modern patterns of this kind of weird shit around Mohamed, but we're not going to get into it yet. So here's the thing. I wanted to make sure, building on all of this, that I told you why there was a huge falling out between Russell Armstrong, Taylor Armstrong's ex-husband from Real Housewives of Orange County and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and Mohamed Hadid. Mohamed Hadid, of course, being Yolanda Hadid's ex-husband and Gigi and Bella Hadid's dad. And right on brand for Mohamed Hadid, we also need to mention his new daughter, who it just was announced he's the dad of. I guess, he knew, but nobody else did and kept it secret. Her name is Aiden Nix, and she was out of Florida. I guess her mom must have moved from LA at some point to Florida, and, she does mortgage brokering in Central Florida now, and Aiden Nix has now been announced very smartly in terms of announcing an illegitimate child, if you will, or a secret kid. Gigi Hadid and Bella Hadid did it, which was nice of them to do it in the way they did, because otherwise it would have become a scandal. But because they embraced Aiden as a sibling and announced it in a positive way, it didn't get the scandal publicity wildfire it would have otherwise been. Now, I did some math around Aiden Nix's mom, and she was very, very young when Mohamed would have slept with her to make Aiden. We're thinking, late teens, early 20s, but, it is what it is. We're just going to leave that there. But for now, let's go back to today's topic, which is what caused the falling out between Mohamed Hadid and Taylor Armstrong husband, Russell Armstrong. Because this could be interesting to some of the people who are speculating that maybe there was something sinister around his death. Now, remember, I knew Bob Lorsch, who was suing Russell Armstrong at the time that he passed away. And I was like, Bob Lorsch would never do something sinister to him. I mean, he was definitely a very wealthy, powerful man, but just not his energy. He's a play it by the book, formal business guy that would just sue you and take all your money and destroy your life, but nothing more than that. But these other lawsuits might introduce some new characters to this story that might be sinister. Who knows? And all of this has been long forgotten. So I thought I'd remind you guys today, as I do. So in order to tell you the story, we need to go back in time to March 24th of 2003. Russell Armstrong is named in a lawsuit filed by a plaintiff, OVS and Churchill Reinsurance Limited. They claim he and his co-defendants were guilty of securities fraud, misrepresentation, constructive fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, imposition of constructive trust, RICO, unfair business practices, and fraudulent conveyance and civil conspiracy. Now, this little lawsuit, which was civil, was another lawsuit because he had two others that I'm aware of. One was due to Christy Carino in 2001, alleging him of fraud, negligent misrepresentation, statutory securities violations, and breach of fiduciary duties. Basically selling her $175,000 of worthless stock. And of course, Russell Armstrong arrives in Beverly Hills with the felony conviction for tax evasion. So needless to say, Russell was trying to rebuild his life, and he had to create a whole, facade in order to do so. What's unusual about Taylor Armstrong and Russell Armstrong's sort of reinvention of themselves is that normally people, when they make such a big mistake, like tax evasion and have some criminality follow from it, are really careful to do everything so very properly as they rebuild their life, trying to be rich again or whatever. And by the way, loads of people come out of criminal situations and do have to do loads of stuff to rebrand themselves to be able to make money and to do it. But whatever they do it legally, they do it perfect, they do it pucker. What's unusual about Russell is that he doesn't. He just goes right back to that sort of breaking the system, not doing it right. And who knows, maybe he had some unidentified mental illness problems. I'm certainly not here to judge him. But what I will go is tell you how this March 24th, 2003 case between OVS Inc. and Churchill Reinsurance Limited, which followed all of this, involves Mohamed Hadid. So Russell Armstrong had a company, Armstrong Family Trust, which was formerly known as Brentwood Family Trust and Brentwood Medical Trust. And surprisingly, these individuals were a part of this Armstrong Family Trust. Now listen carefully. David F. Firestone, Manuel P. Glaze, Tino Ungara, Jacques Chen, Andy Dubé, and Mohamed Hadid. Ding, ding, ding. So in some way, Mohamed Hadid was working with Russell Armstrong on some of these less than legit companies that were seeking investment from people that ended up getting in a lot of trouble civilly for it. And thus they get named in this OVS and Churchill Reinsurance civil litigation that goes against Russell Armstrong and his colleagues, which are implicated, right? Now, here's what was alleged in this lawsuit. Armstrong represented to Vinatieri that he was the president of a highly successful venture capital fund called Century Financial Advisors and Century Financial Partners. Armstrong stated that he was in the process of forming a hedge fund that would focus on making private investments in public companies, sometimes known as PIPE investments, whereby the hedge fund would make short-term loans to small publicly traded corporations in exchange for notes plus freely tradable shares of the borrower. Vinatieri expressed interest in participating in the hedge fund. That in itself is shocking. Shortly thereafter, Armstrong provided Vinatieri with information about investing in Brighton Fund. When Vinatieri inquired as to why Armstrong was not listed as a partner or manager on the Brighton Fund documents, instead of Armstrong saying he had a criminal background, he said that he had brought in a prominent hedge fund manager named David Firestone, probably made up that Firestone was like the Tire family because of what we found out later from, the Taylor Ford bullshit. And Andy Dubé was going to act as administrator, and that David Firestone had an enormous amount of background with this type of investing in hedge funds. Well, unknown to the plaintiff, Vinatieri, the true facts were that Firestone and Dubé were existing employees and associates of Century Financial Advisors and or Century Financial Partners who had little or no prior experience running a hedge fund, and Firestone was listed as an investment advisor for Brighton Fund because Armstrong was a convicted felon who was barred from having an investment advisor's license. It's important to note that neither of these men were directors or partners in the company as it was represented. They were just paid consultants or some sort of employee-ish type person. Churchill and OVS would invest a total of $1 million, which was allegedly spent on investments in shell corporations set up by the defendants, made up fees, lavish trips, and other fraudulent expenditures, All the while, the plaintiffs say the Brighton Fund books and records were falsified to reflect the value of its holdings at artificially inflated prices for the purpose of concealing the defendant's misconduct. And I want to read you some parts on the actual filing that I found really interesting. How they break down everybody who's like implicated in the civil, argument. Well, this is what they wrote from Russell Armstrong related to Mohamed. Okay, they have a number 10 on information and belief. Defendant Russell L. Armstrong is an individual residing in the county of Los Angeles, state of California. Armstrong is a convicted felon. And then you jump down to a gentleman by the name of Jack Chen. And it says on number 12, on information and belief, defendant Jack Chen is an individual residing in the county of Los Angeles, state of California, who shares office space with Armstrong, Century Financial Advisors, and Century Financial Partners. Chen is, and at all times relevant hereto, has been an attorney licensed by the state of California. But listen to this. However, on information and belief, Chen was suspended from the California State Bar for dishonesty in 1991. Chen is and has been a business advisor to an attorney for Armstrong, Brighton's Fund and Brighton Advisors, as well as the registered agent of Century Financial Advisors and Century Financial Partners. So Russell found a guy to be his attorney and to share offices with him and to act as like kind of an advisor who actually himself had been disbarred or suspended from the bar due to like a problem, not just like non-payment like we've seen in the past with Ebony Williams. Anyway, the rest of the characters in this group are from Los Angeles, Orange County, and Canada. Now, here's the whopper, you guys. Listen to this. Number 16. On information and belief, defendant Mohamed Hadid is an individual residing in the county of Los Angeles, state of California. On further information and belief, Hadid controls various entities involved in the wrongdoing described in this complaint. And they go on to believe that there's numerous other people that are involved in this scheme that are not listed in the lawsuit, but they put like a placeholder in for them. And that's where it's kind of like a RICO allegation, that they believe this was almost like a criminal network of people that were doing false investments in really like clever ways that they could get people's money, but then it would never go beyond civil and but they would use the money for their lifestyle. Now, I love 26. Listen to this. On information and belief, the defendant's oral and written representations about the supposedly positive performance of Brighton Fund were intentionally and materially false and misleading. The true facts were that the defendants were engaged in a scheme to loot and divert the fund's assets to themselves or, this is important, to entities and individuals affiliated with or controlled by the defendants. Such acts of self-dealing and improper conduct include but are not limited to the making of phony investments in shell companies owned by, controlled by, or affiliated with the defendants, payment of unjustified and excessive fees, transfers of funds for little or no consideration, and payments of expenses unrelated to the operation of Brighton Fund. Some of the improper diversions of funds were accomplished through the laundering of monies belonging to Brighton Fund through wire transfers made to Chen's trust account. Such transfers and payments eventually depleted virtually all the assets of Brighton Fund. Now, meanwhile, they're telling everybody the fund's doing great and thriving. Anyway, they go on to list what all the checks were for, and some of it was for Chen's lifestyle to go rent like a really cool penthouse in Vegas. Other ones were just money that were sent into their like company that were diverted to Chen, and then Chen diverted the money to Russell Armstrong. But it doesn't appear that Russell was doing anything for Chen to warrant these payments. He didn't seem to have a job for Chen or work for Chen, so it's really weird. And also there didn't seem to be like a reason for them. So, I mean, I don't know, like if they were all fraudulent, like they're saying. It could be that some weren't, but like this is what they're alleging. This caught my eye. Number F. payment of phony, quote, profit participation fees to Hadid and or companies controlled by Hadid and to other persons and entities affiliated with the defendants. They allegedly came up with really strange, documentation within the books, side deals, and they hid money to different people that way. And wow, it's just crazy. And they falsified books and records in the company. Now, it was difficult to figure out what happened in this case, and you might be wondering how this didn't go criminal. It would appear there was some sort of settlement made and completed by all these parties, probably because they were afraid that, number one, they wouldn't be able to raise more money with other people if this got a lot of publicity, this case, and people were able to find it. This is, of course, before Russell Armstrong's famous. But in addition to that, I think they were afraid that this might go criminal if they didn't settle this civil litigation. So what happened was they did. Anyway, they end up doing an audit somehow, they fight for this information and they get it. And that's how they figure out that they've been defrauded. All in all, it looks like one company lost $420,825 and the other company only lost $20,825. But needless to say, they wanted their money back. Now, I actually was kind of surprised because I thought to myself, there's a lot of people related to Russell that get sued in this. And I'm thinking that maybe somebody in that group could have gotten pissed at Russell. And obviously these guys were not on the up and up, some of them, because they were kind of sketchy in what they were representing and their background and so on. Now, I'm not saying that, they took Russell out, but it's probably not great to have these types of people pissed off at you for, getting caught and sort of being the mastermind behind this whole thing, right? Anyway, I thought what you would find interesting is that all the people listed were allegedly part of a RICO racketeering network that Russell Armstrong was running. And allegedly, Mohamed Hadid was part of this operation. So no wonder he didn't want Russell Armstrong years later to go to his parties at his mansion with Lisa Vanderpump and Taylor Armstrong. Can you imagine if someone had actually brought this up on the show to Lisa Vanderpump, around the Mohamed parties that they shot from time to time, some of which made it on the final edit? I'm just dying. Imagine Lisa having to, address her friendship with Mohamed Hadid. By the way, as of July 22nd, 2019, Bravo was still reporting that Mohamed and Lisa Vanderpump and Ken Todd were good friends because he went to Ken Todd's birthday party. And he said, "Happy birthday, Ken, most lovely human with loveliest wife, Lisa." And he posted a tribute to LVP. It says, "It was so lovely to connect with my dearest and always best friend, the lady of all ladies, the talent that has no limit, the heart that's bigger than the moon, the one and only Lisa at Ken's birthday." Gee, she's really close friends with him, huh? I wonder once Russell Armstrong's dad got the pictures of Russell Louis Armstrong, because by the way, Louis Armstrong, I think, was Russell's real, solid name. I don't know if he added Russell or, he just never used Russell, but originally it was Louis Armstrong. Yeah, I know. And Taylor had many names too. But essentially, his dad always believed that he had been murdered by a colleague or someone that maybe he stole money from in one of these investment schemes or someone involved in this quote unquote racketeering group. And I don't know if receiving the pictures of Russell Armstrong's death, autopsy, etc., settled that for him or not. I don't know, but there was a lot of suspicious stuff around Russell Armstrong's death. However, I do think, based on my knowledge at the time, that he legit took his life because I think he owed a lot of people money, and I think he couldn't handle the abuse allegations on the show. I think the show was the nail in the coffin, and I think he went off his antidepressants really suddenly, and it caused him to, not be able to think rationally, and so he did an impulsive move. However, again, we find out more information, so our opinion shifts slightly. I'll leave that with you to consider. You know me, I'm not here to convince you of anything, just tell you what I figured out. All right, let's move on to a new topic. This one's depressing for me. Speaking of all this, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills And of course, Lisa Vanderpump with her new show, Vanderpump Villa, which is in season 2. We have, some gossip that's been floating around. First and foremost, Dorit Kemsley dropped a Booking.com ad, which I think had some secrets in it, actually, as I listened to it. I will play it for you. And then in addition to that, we got rumors that Teddy Mellencamp is coming back almost 100% as Kyle Richards' quote, friend of On the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which got the fans kind of upset. They're obviously happy that she's recovering from her cancer, which is fantastic, but they don't want to see her on TV anymore. So we'll see what happens with all of those things. But yeah, that's supposedly happening for sure now. And then in addition to that, there's been rumors going around the internet that Rachel Zoe might be finally ready to pass the executive producer baton over to Andy Cohen and join the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And sure enough, it has been confirmed because filming did start the last few days in Beverly Hills officially on the new season. And so she had to announce that she is part of the cast. Here's what she said.
Official, I am coming back to Bravo. I am joining the cast of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. It's been a while, and you've been asking me to come back to television, and I said when the stars align, or it makes sense, or I have enough to say to share with all of you, and now is the time. Really excited to be with all of you again, and I hope you are too, so let's have some fun.
The reason I think this Rachel Zoe announcement makes sense right now for the network is because of all of the mashup conversations that have been happening in Bravo land. Vanity Fair just did a huge article announcing that they think that the Housewives has played out now and that it's at the end of its run and it just doesn't have the demand that it used to have to keep it on air. Just getting a few 100,000 views, even with bringing big people back that were stars of the show in the past, especially demonstrated with Real Housewives of Atlanta, who just brought Phaedra Parks back and to the lowest ratings of the entire season 16, which was not expected. So a lot of the people who kind of are studying this whole thing are like, the Housewives thing has played itself out. And Andy Cohen himself had said, when the Housewives things plays itself out, I'm going to start doing mashups and I'm going to be allowing people to, go from one franchise to another. And we're kind of seeing that happen, right? Because Rachel Zoe was on the Rachel Zoe project, which is her mashup now with Beverly Hills, if you think of it this way. If Heather Dubrow ends up on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills down the line, that could be a mashup. They've been teasing that a little bit on the Real Housewives of Orange County upcoming trailer. Here it is, by the way, for you guys to listen to.
You've never had a polygraph before?
No. There's a snake in this group.
No one likes a liar. She's not telling the truth. The truth always comes to light.
Enough bullshit. Make it make sense. Why? She's not the person you think she is.
Would you rather be a housewife of Beverly Hills?
This season on the Real Housewives. Show me your tits.
Take it easy, Grandma.
I'm gonna pee in the tulips. That's such a natural hookup. Shannon, show us your Spanx.
No, I'm the madam.
Am I gonna be looking at your vagina all night?
That's the point. I'm just kidding.
She's ready to mingle.
Did you make out with multiple men in Newport?
Yes.
Hi, kids.
Only you can make this happen. I'll give Josh a higher commission if he goes down there.
Just forever?
That's the property line, isn't it?
I broke his penis for real.
Like it
went like this.
Gretchen, Jen, and I have been hanging out a lot.
She dips herself in formaldehyde.
I said, Tamra SOS, and I got a call right away.
You're talking about Captain Evil.
12 years you've been going after me.
It's not the same thing.
Oh,
Katie's like a silent assassin.
What you did is illegal.
Okay, Shannon, because it's all my fault.
We're done.
She left her grilled cheese.
Gretchen said that you had an affair. There's audio of them having sex? She's lying.
Travis's son, we haven't seen in 3 weeks. He's got to go back to court.
Whenever Travis and I are happy, we pay for it.
Luke, he's sad, and it breaks my heart. I have this son that's in crisis, and I feel alone in that. We're gonna end up divorced.
Babe, you're hot. I do.
I don't want Tamara at our wedding.
That woman caused so much pain. Sorry, what do you want, blood?
There's probably a lot more things that we just don't know.
Are you currently keeping any secrets?
Are you kidding me?
What do you know about me, bitch? Stop lying! Kick rocks, girlfriend. Run, bitch, run! Nobody believes you, not even the lie detector test.
You're so full of shit. Maybe I have truth serum.
Ooh. That's called vodka.
So you heard them tease that about Heather, joining Beverly Hills in the beginning of the teaser. It looks like season 19 is going to center a lot around Katie Janela being a liar and Tamra Judge getting, blamed for dealing with influencers to hurt Shannon Bedore. I think that was the T. I can't remember. We did get it. So, yeah, there it is. But let's go back to the mashup concept for a minute. Real Housewives of New Jersey, Dolores Catania is joining the Real Housewives of Rhode Island as a friend of. We've got, the Love Hotel group from all the different franchises going on that. We've got Melissa Gorga going on Wife Swap. I mean, you just see him doing this mashup now. Taylor Armstrong on OC from Beverly Hills. So he's obviously sensing his stuff is losing steam, not just Vanity Fair. And so this is his way to sort of shake it up, which is something he said he would do towards what he perceived to be the end. Now, simultaneously with that, he's also releasing press saying, hey, listen, I don't think that's the case, even though he's acting like he thinks that's the case. I'm casting for Real Housewives of New Jersey. We're launching a new Rhode Island franchise. Ladies of London's back. We're maybe rebooting New York, but we don't know how. Again. So he's not giving in to that, even though he's behaving like he said he was going to behave towards the end. I'd say that Andy Cohen isn't really in a position to give up the shows now. And he's got a lot more competition than he ever has before from people he brought up through the ranks, by the way. I mean, he just in May sold his apartment for $12 million. And he was definitely anxious to sell it based on what he said on his Radio Andy show. I guess one of his friends, Ryan Cernant from $1 Million Listing New York, eventually helped facilitate that deal for him. But they were really confident it was going for $14 million. I think even higher at one point he was demanding, I think he's joked around on Watch What Happens Live and said like he wanted $20 million or something. So now he's at 12 when he finally gets rid of it. And let's just say that his new house was $18 million, and he bought it in 2022. Then I think he spent a ton of money redoing the house. Okay. Plus, Andy Cohen bought a $5.4 million Hamptons house. So, I mean, he's got to keep making bank in a very competitive environment for reality TV at the moment because so many people saw what Andy did and was like, okay, we got to get in this game and do the same thing. But now it's kind of saturated. Speaking of saturated, there's been some gossip surrounding Vanderpump Villa and Demi again. Brett, Demi's husband from Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, dropped a text message where he said this about one of her co-stars that was doubling down that something happened between Marciano and Demi when they were at Vanderpump Villa. Because Jen has proven to be a pathological liar over and over again, here's one of many examples. Most of Jen and Zach's entire backstory for SLOMW, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, is a lie. They were never separated, in all caps. Jen sat in Whitney's living room pleading with Zach to go along with the fake narrative of separation. Jen's claims of Marciano and Demi are 100% false. Oh, and Demi never served Jen a cease and desist. Hope this brings clarity. And then Marciano took to his Instagram and dropped receipts between him and Demi showing that she stayed talking to him after she left Vanderpump Villa, so couldn't possibly have thought he was a predator. For the full scoop, join the Dishing Drama Dana Patreon. The link is in this audio description. It's only $6 a month and you'll get the best information and tea about the things you care about. and even the things you don't know you care about. What are you waiting for?